So, welcome to video number 3 on the subject of Scotland. I often tell a joke when I'm standing on a stage or a platform in the United States. It doesn't matter what direction you go in from any starting point in Scotland, within a quarter of an hour you will find one of the following: a beautiful scenic tourist spot, a castle or haunted house, and a spiritualist church. And yes, things in Scotland with regard to mediumship are very different from what you've probably encountered in the United States, and that is the killer unique selling point advantage that you're going to be able to use to build the business. The last two videos were showing you numbers and marketing on the website, but if you don't have a USP, if you don't have a service that knocks the competition for six, you're never going to achieve those numbers. So let's start with a little bit of history. In the 19th century, the Fox sisters are generally recognised as the first modern mediums. That's a load of crap. Sorry to use that terminology in the video. Scotland traces its spiritual beliefs back multiple thousands of years to a tribe called the Celts. Now, the Celts used to cover the whole of what is now Western Europe, UK, Great Britain, France, Spain, well into Germany. Then about 2,000 years ago, the Italians, or more specifically the Romans, got civilized, and the Roman legions started conquering Europe. Systematically, all the countries I've just mentioned were conquered, civilized, which usually involved mass genocide of the Celtic peoples that were resisting and trying to remain independent. Now, the Celts are one of 6 ancient peoples recognized as still being around. Native Americans are one of those other 6. We all trace our beliefs back to early sort of what is now recognized as shamanism, which is a very primitive form of spiritual mediumship. Now, Scotland was never conquered. Scotland is the only remaining Celtic nation on the planet, except little bits of other bits of the UK, bits of Ireland, Cornwall in England, and very small areas, very small populations. Scotland is still a very small country. Population 5.4 million. We have approximately 400 spiritualist churches, spiritualist centres if you're coming from America. New York State, where the Fox sisters lived, have 12, and that's the largest number across the entire continent of the USA if you look at it on a state-by-state basis. What does this mean? Well, in a small country with a large number of churches, although they're all independent, they all are very linked. It's very easy for them all to speak to each other. They all teach mediumship in the same way, and that's where I myself learnt my mediumship skills, in a circle run by a church. It's very different. The key points are we go direct. What do I mean by that? If you have a spiritual background, and if you've ever been to a stage performance or a church, you'll see the medium shouting out, "I've got a spirit looking for George. I've got a spirit called Tom. Can anybody take that?" And a dozen hands go up. And then they'll whittle it down, and eventually they'll get to the one person that can take the evidence. Now, okay, that is a legitimate way of working, but as a professional medium trained in Scotland, my gut reaction is it's too easy to hide fraud. Make it up. "Hello, I've got a man called Tom. He died in his 70s. Two hands stay up. He had a beard. One hand stays up. Now, yes, that may be spiritual communication, but it could also be a fraudster guessing. "Can you take that spirit?" "Yes," and before you know it, they're straight into a generic message. So that's the second difference in Scotland. The messages are also evidential and also very specific. I will train you to talk about the invoice lying on the seat in the car, on the passenger seat. Very specific, very direct. Other differences would be giving evidence, I've already mentioned that, and giving proof of life after death. The structure of the message is just as important as the message. You don't go straight into giving the message. If you've been to an American medium, I'll give you a 50-50 chance that the medium went straight into a generic message. Are you confused today? We're all confused at some point. Let me talk about that. Let me say what spirit. You're going to be fine in the future. There aren't any details there to tie the person down with. Without actually coming to Circle and seeing how we work, it all sounds theoretical. So when you come to the Circle, every reading you receive will be using this methodology. Evidence of who the spirit is before the message, and the message itself will be specific. Hope to see you at the Circle. There's one more video to come, number 4, and that will be covering the 3 very specific, unique Marc Stuart medium techniques that I will teach you. Pattern working, consulting mediumship, and finally, the rule of 3.